I'd like to call the meeting to order of the corporate authorities of the Village of Campton Hills. It's April 29th, 2026. What time do you have, Tracy?
7:36 PM.
7:36 PM. Roll call.
Trustee Benetti?
Here.
Trustee Boatner?
Here.
Trustee Burson is absent. Trustee Hassenberger is absent. Trustee Millet is absent. Trustee Muir?
Here.
President Wonicky?
Present. All right, please rise for the pledge. And Kim, will you lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on to public comments. Anybody have any public comments? And Mark, you're gonna introduce Lauterbach and Amon?
Well, I was going to do it, I'm sorry, I was thinking we'd do it under the staff report finance, so we can do the consent, and then I'll introduce them.
Okay. Yeah,
No,
there's-
we have no consent, so I guess, let me call Therese. She wanted to
Okay,
call Therese. Let me just return that call so she can join us.
So there's no public comments.
I would say no.
So the first thing we need.
Hello.
Therese, we want to include you in the meeting, so we'll need as
A
a
motion?
motion.
A motion to allow trustee Hoppensberger to attend remotely?
So move.
Moved by Kim. Second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Frank. Roll call.
Actually, can I ask a question? So, Therese, I just had a question. I know you're at an event in Springfield. I was wondering, did you choose to go there voluntarily, or were you required to be there?
Well, as you know, these things are not something we're required to go to, but I did sign up for it, and this is one of the specific exceptions allowed for in the OMA rules, that it's business of the village, and that's exactly what this is. Mike Millet actually agreed at the last meeting that he's done this in the past. And also, when I did sign up for this, we had no meeting scheduled for 4/29. This meeting was the special meeting added in later. I've been signed up for this conference long before this meeting was scheduled.
Hey, Therese, I was just joking. I was just giving you some grief, so,
Okay, well, okay, we don't really have a lot of time for that, but okay.
all right.
All righty.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
President Wonicky?
Yes.
All right, you're officially part of the meeting. And at this point in the meeting, we have the staff report, Finance Committee. Trustee Benetti has a report from last Thursday, and then we'll introduce Lauterbach and Amon's reps.
And I have a comment to make before the report.
Go, yeah.
I want to note for the
Go ahead.
record that I have raised concerns regarding the execution of the Lauterbach and Amon agreement. In my view, the agreement was not properly authorized. It was indefinitely tabled on February 17th, 2026, which means there was no valid authority to execute it at that time. I have shared these legal and procedural concerns with the board, the administrator, and our village attorney. If the board wishes to move forward, any renegotiation should follow the proper process and be brought back for formal consideration. I have no problem renegotiating that contract. We
It's not
all
on the
talked about
agenda
this
anyway.
at length. We should have been given that opportunity, and we should be following proper procedure. So I look forward to, I'm going to set up a meeting with the Lauterbach and Amon folks, and I'd like to get together with them and talk to them, but they need to know, though, that I am raising valid concerns about the execution of that agreement.
Okay. Therese, just a side note, it's not on the agenda today. Lauterbach, there's two gentlemen here from Lauterbach and Amon, and they're just joining our meeting this evening. And,
I understand, but I had also asked the attorney to put them on notice, and I'm just making sure that they're on notice, that I have that issue. So I was taking the opportunity, knowing that they're at the meeting, to let them know, and also let them know that I want to reach out to them. So if someone could share their names with me and contact info, that would be great, because then I'd like to reach out to them and set up a meeting before, after I get back into town.
Okay, thank you, Therese.
I will
Mark,
send that,
thank
I
you.
will send that
But
out.
Yeah.
they are also here tonight.
Awesome, thank you.
For that specific reason, to answer questions and to highlight what they'll be doing.
Yes,
So, I mean, that's part of this meeting. That's-
Yeah. So really, Bob, if you could, and Matt, just go to the mic, and Kim will make sure it's on so we can. And Frank, I guess that'd be your report to what the Finance Committee recommended as well.
Sure.
Before, and then introduce them after
The
your.
pole's in the way. You can move the podium a little bit. Does it move? I think it's on wheels. There you go. There you go.
Go. That's better.
Matt.
Hi. I'm Matt Barron, partner at Lauterbach and Amon.
Bob Tannehill, accountant at Lauterbach and Amon.
And Bob, along with Sherry, is the two that will work on our account, and they are the ones that also work at Prospect Heights that we spoke of with Frank and myself and Janet, and then Mike Millette, to understand that, and the, reaching out with the administrator and the new administrator at Prospect Heights, and there's been no issues with the review, because review for a finance director essentially is what we call a treasurer here does, and it reviews all the work of anyone on the team, including their team, as well as Russ as our team and Michelle as our team, doing the different work, and they would obviously review it and make sure it's in all respects correct accounting-wise before it's done. So they would fulfill the role of basically a finance director when they say review. So we've had a chance, Frank and I and Janet and Mike, to go into that, but if anybody still had questions, I don't know, Kim, if you ever got a chance to talk to Joe or Pete? But you got their number in case you had
I
questions.
do, and I do intend to call.
Okay.
But
So,
actually, I think it might be a good idea. In our last call with Mike and Mark, we had talked about maybe highlighting what some of Bob's responsibilities are with Prospect Heights and some of the other villages that he participates in. Because the general question that was brought up, by the trustees, was that the contract really read that your main role would be to do reviews of everything, because that was the verbiage that was used. And in our verbal conversations, it was well beyond that. So we asked that if you can maybe just give a general description of how you participate and what your anticipation would be of participating with us.
Yeah, I'll turn over to Bob in just a second to talk through what he does at Prospect Heights, which is a much more robust contract than what is here. It is, it's the Russ role and then some, because it's a significantly larger budget than it is than we have here. So there's a lot more pieces to it of what Bob's role is. So he'll go into that of like what it is that he's doing. As far as review, I feel like we've been hung up on that a lot, and in general, a review is a part of the approval process of any cycle, right? So if you're doing bank recs and you're doing those, Russ is responsible for completing the bank reconciliation. We are then there to review it to make sure it's done and you sign off. That's a standard issue, internal control that you're supposed to have. Like any best practice that there is around the financial reporting cycle has a review of the bank reconciliation to sign off to make sure it's complete and done correctly. If it's not being done correctly, that's when our team gets in and starts to help to try to figure out what's going on with it, to try to fix that error, to make sure it is then done correctly. But you have to have that sign-off part of it to say, it is now approved, it's done, and we are now closing the books at that point in time. So it's like a standard. When I was talking with Mark during this process and we were determining what it is that the village was looking for, I told him, we can basically do whatever it is. You guys have your own puzzle, you have a puzzle set up, you have all these puzzle pieces that are set up, and we can be whatever puzzle piece you need us to be, depending on what it is that you have, that are the needs of this community. And with Russ being in place and him doing the bank reconciliations, completing the data, like the monthly accounting, like the actual work, that then left that more finance director role, which is reviewing, make sure it's being approved, make sure everything is being done properly in accordance with the government accounting standards, to then have it be around for the audit.
and key in on the segregation of duties.
Yes, obviously the segregation of duties is particularly important because you can't have one person doing all the accounting and doing the bank reconciliations, because that means you are basically able to approve your own work, which then is where fraud then can come into place. Obviously, people can be tricky regardless of however it is, but this is a segregation of duties that's there to help to prevent that, because you can't just do whatever you want. You get your entries approved, you get your bank reconciliation approved, make sure it's being done properly.
Okay.
But yeah, I can now turn it over to Bob, unless anybody has any other questions
Yeah.
about like what review means.
No, I think
But I
we'll,
can then turn it over to Bob to have him go over the laundry list, the long list of things that he does at Prospect Heights.
Well, thank
I
you
have
for,
a question. You want me to wait
yeah, if you could wait and hold it till the,
Okay.
to the end.
till they're
Thank you.
done? Okay.
thank you for having us tonight, and, let me explain. So Prospect Heights, I've been here 6 years with Prospect Heights. Just to give you a little background on myself, my prior job was in law enforcement. I was a deputy chief of police, retired from Elmhurst Police Department. I do have an accounting degree from Eastern Illinois. I did start in accounting before I became a police officer. Went into that field and then started working with Lauterbach and Amon 21 years ago. I was working part-time with them as also being a police officer. And during that time, I was doing the Illinois Department of Insurance reports for all the pension funds, police and fire pension funds. So I was doing accounting work, I was doing the financial statements for those IDOI reports. Retired in March of 20, right before COVID took over. And then lucky for me, they hired me on full-time and put me into the role of working at Prospect Heights as the assistant finance director there. And then also I worked on other municipalities during that time, the first 3 years of my time. 3 years into it, I'm mostly at Prospect Heights now. I do work on another client, which is Mavis. It's the mutual aid box alarm system. And I reconcile all their grants and pay all their bills and do all the bank recs for the Mavis division. So my role at Prospect Heights is the assistant finance director. I'm there to help prepare budgets every year, so I've been preparing the last 6 years of budgets with all the department heads. We have meetings. We just got done with our budget on Monday night, so that got passed. I do all the financial reports, do a financial report every month at the meetings, so I look at all the expenses and make sure that we're at budget or under budget or why we're over budget. I question all the department heads regarding their expenses. I prepare all the accounts payable, all the checks getting cut, make sure that we have the proper signatures on those checks. We have a new system we just implemented last year. It's called AP Workflow, where we have all the department heads put all their invoices into the system, and then it's got to have a two-signature type of approval on there, where it's the department head and then it's the city administrator. Then I have the final approval of putting it into the AP system, and I provide a warrant list to the city council on a bi-monthly basis on that. So I review all the invoices and make sure that they're getting properly paid, make sure we're not paying the double on that part. As for the financial report, I have to put a financial report together every month. I look at all the revenues, expenses, I compare it to budget, see where we're at. If I have questions, I talk to the department heads, or I talk to the city administrator to ask them the question, why we at this point, where we should be at this point. I investigate why maybe revenues are down, maybe something got posted differently, so I look at those things. As for the bank recs, I do the bank recs for the city also. And I also have a person that comes in twice a week right now, and that person is doing the bank recs, and I review that work on those bank recs through our Cassell system. I know that you use Cassell here, so I'm very familiar with Cassell, and I use that on a day-to-day basis. So I have a good knowledge base in how to get into the Cassell system and use it to your advantage to present financial statements, bank recs, and things like that. I am also there for questions for our city administrator regarding any financial questions, as in bond. We just went through a bond referendum, so I was just part of that bond referendum with the city manager. I also work with a woman called Sherry Greco, her title is the finance director. She's there once a week just to overview, make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So we have another checks and balances there. I'm involved with the tax levies. We're just going to start a TIF project now in Prospect Heights. So I basically do the full accounting and financial work at Prospect Heights, but we do have checks and balances where someone also checks my work. So if I'm there making journal entries, Sherry's the one that checks my journal entry, make sure it's going to the right place. If I have someone there from Lauterbach Game, another person, they will do the entry, I check off on that entry. When it comes to audit time, I'm responsible to putting the audit together, getting all the work papers together, getting the preliminary audit taken care of, and providing information that the auditors need to do their audit. So I do the whole thing at Prospect Heights. There's a lot there. Utility billing, I'm also involved in all the utility billing, reconciling those accounts, the accounts receivable portion of that, doing the collection portion of the receivables on that. So hopefully that's something you guys are looking for. And I'm excited to jump in and get started.
And Therese, you had, I think, you want
Therese
to,
had a question.
if you want to go first, Therese, with your, any
Sure.
question?
Sure.
Or
Sure.
comment?
So just how does a finance director differ from a treasurer? Or are they basically the same job?
They're pretty much the same job. It's basically semantics on the title. Usually treasurer ends up being more appointed with the board and how that goes, but finance director is, there's not really a difference between the two as far as we're concerned. We can do that job of what that is. It's, we're overseeing the books and the financials and where your accounting, or where your cash is at. And that's the main
Can
part
one
of
of you
that
be
bank
named as
reconciliation
a treasurer?
process.
Would it
Yes.
work out like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry if I overtalk, if I
Yeah,
talk over you, I'm just
and
having a hard time.
we did speak to that, and yes, we could talk with
They could.
President Woznicki to appoint Bob as the treasurer, and he'd still
Okay.
do the work, because Sherry's overseeing his work.
Okay. Is it Sherry? I don't know. Who is this person?
Sherry Greco is also part of the team. She's not here tonight, but she would be overseeing any work Bob does. So we'd have
And-
segregation.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and her role is a lot of support and providing that mentoring with Bob as far as another finance director, ideas, if there's something that's coming up that's new, different, that Bob hasn't seen. Sherry's been in the business for a long time. She's been that main finance director at multiple places, so it's a lot of what we're talking about here is where Sherry's involvement, my involvement, Bob's involvement. It's you're hiring a firm which has a lot of people with a lot of skills and a lot of talents to bring to the table, and not just hiring one person.
Is what we're talking about still the same, $7,000 a month for 10 to 12 hours of work?
Yeah,
Yes.
So I guess that's been a bit of a sticking point for me on this whole thing. That ends up being either $134 an hour or $161 an hour, whether or not you pick 10 or 12 hours a week, which I think is rich. And I think it's too expensive for a small village like us. I don't know how we justify those kinds of rates.
Yeah, there you're speaking more to the other trustees than the contractor.
I am. Because I guess then that kind of ties into my next question, which is, I've heard Russ's name mentioned, so we still need to keep at least one sort of financial clerk. So do we have an idea of like how many hours? Because that person right now is getting paid $40 an hour. So, we would have to, as a board, justify, four times, 5 times the amount, 4 times the amount, as our one employee getting $40 an hour. I don't know how we justify that. That's been my biggest sticking point on this from day one, is I think some of those expenses in our village have gotten out of control, and this just takes them even further. I wasn't happy with some of our, $104 an hour and $110 an hour, leave alone $134 and $161. But you've clarified that, so I don't need to talk, we can talk this out as a board, but that's a huge sticking point for me. There's other issues, but that is one of the main ones.
Okay. And that's an
So
argument.
but do you have a sense of how many hours we would need from another employee so we can, fully do the accounting on this? So if we've adding to the 7,000, we've got another employee, and does it make sense? Who do we hire now to do the grunt work for $40 an hour when they know that the guy supervising or the gal supervising them is getting 3 or 4 times that amount of money to supervise?
So we have Michelle as the finance clerk and does other duties, but that's her primary accounts payable, receivable work, and the working with Russ to make sure those are counts, and then Bob would be overseeing that and ensuring it. So you've got Michelle, and you got Russ doing 10 to 12 hours, what we initially thought he would do, and getting it back
So-
to that, and then,
Is that the guesstimate? How many hours, how many hours a month for Michelle? How many hours a month for Russ? And are we keeping Russ at $40 an hour while
Yes.
we're paying his supervisor $160 an hour?
that's more of an internal discussion with the board. But if you have any other, Frank is saying to Barb and me, if you got questions for them, because our internal debate of who's getting paid to do what is not what Bob and,
No, I
matter
understand,
here.
but I'm just trying to have them understand where I'm coming from. This is not anything against them as a company or as a firm or against them individually. I'm just trying to be fiscally, responsible here and trying to reconcile making the decision. So, y'all know I'm one voice,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to kind of point out the obvious here that we've got the people doing the work at much less of a rate. I just don't know if this is a luxury that we can afford. It may be great on paper. It may be all kinds of great reasons to have a company. I'm not against that. In the very beginning, I was for that. But in the very beginning, if you all recall, when this was first brought up to Barbara, and I think Frank was one of the people that brought it was brought up as saving us money. And we have gotten so far from that, we're not saving anything. This is a lot of money to spend in addition to 2 other employees that we're going to have. No one has given me hours, so do we have a guesstimate of how many hours that Michelle would be working a month and how many hours like a Russ or someone like him would be working a month?
yeah, we've covered that before, but it'd be Michelle's 40-hour work week that she's already existing doing, and then Russ at somewhere in the 12 to 18 max, because he's got a IMRF issue that he's told us about many times. And then payroll, and if we don't switch to the Cassell software in the fourth quarter, it would stay with paychecks, and Julie would continue to do that if it takes 8 hours or it takes 12 hours, every other week. Once she's established, a lot of her workload is falling off. So, Frank, if you want to
Yeah,
jump in.
I just want to make a comment.
Were those weekly? I think those were weekly numbers, so the 40. But I didn't think Michelle worked 100% on this kind of stuff. But you gave me all of her 40 hours.
Okay,
So-
Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have to pay Michelle either way, right? And I think we calculated that between Russ and Lauterbach, it was still cheaper than what we were paying our previous treasurer
Yes,
by a significant number.
yes.
So,
Probably not a good gauge though,
Wait,
because
wait,
the previous
Therese?
treasurer wasn't doing his work.
Therese, hold on, Frank is speaking. Go ahead.
correct. So
and finish.
I think we all agreed that the quality of the work that was being done for more than what we were paying wasn't really up to what our expectations were. And, we feel that going in a more professional manner, a more organized manner, and I can do the rest of the report, and you'll understand, because Tim Pierce, who's been on the Finance Committee for 18 years, his comment specifically was that it would be nice to have transparency and consistency. He also said that that's always been a problem with the village, and they would welcome the stability. And John Olson, who was the chair of the Finance Committee, Tim said he thinks he would be in total agreement with that.
Can I say
Because
something
part,
quick then?
can I finish?
No, I don't disagree with any of that.
I think you have to wait till Barbara recognized you, because
Yeah.
Frank was still trying to
Frank
finish.
is still.
I couldn't hear you guys, and I asked if I could speak, and you must not have heard me either. I
Oh, no,
apologize.
we didn't hear you, Therese, but Frank's going to finish his thoughts.
Yeah, go
and
ahead.
then-
I must have broken out. I couldn't hear a thing.
Okay. Go
Okay,
ahead,
so,
finish up.
so basically Tim's comment was that they definitely, and he thought John would be in agreement, and John, I guess, has been on the Finance Committee for a long time as
Yeah,
well.
probably,
And
yes.
quite honestly, this is consistent to when I first got on the board, after I was elected, that this was one of the first conversations that was had in the Finance Committee. And they say that, they don't feel like they're being involved. And actually, Tim Pierce told me that his term was up in July and he was gonna resign because he said over the last 2 years, he didn't feel like the Finance Committee had a lot of input. Prior to, the last couple of years, the Finance Committee would not only meet with the board when it was budget time, they would start the meetings in October, and they would sit down with board members and do a meeting of the whole and really have an open discussion about what the performance was to date and what the outlook is gonna look like for next year. And they would start that process in October, and they would go through the GLs and they would go through the line items, and all of that has not been there for the last 2 years. So they look forward, and Tim actually, by the end of our meeting, said that he would reconsider if we started having more consistent meetings, if we started having meetings with the board, especially around budget time, to make sure that we have a good quality review and a good quality projection for the following year. He did say he really enjoyed how Russ presented the budget, how he went through line item by line item. By doing the line item by line item, we did find an issue where it generated an extra $100,000 to the budget because it was just a line item that was skipped, that was there in previous years. So there is real value to the Finance Committee, and quite honestly, I'm probably the least qualified person on that Finance Committee, because John and Tim have significant degrees, and Steve Cox, who joined as a new resident, also brings a lot of expertise to the table. So I think if we take the recommendations from the Finance Committee, which is basically to be more active on a quarterly basis, to be more active with the board during budget time, and to have a more transparent and consistent process in the treasury area and the treasurer area, that they would highly recommend that we move in that direction.
Okay.
So that's basically
you,
the
Frank.
finance
And
report.
Barb, you might want to just.
Yeah, does any of the trustees have any more questions for Bob or Matt? Nick, you have a question for them? Okay, we'll take you next, and then we'll let you go and we'll do an internal discussion. Thank you.
So warm welcome, Bob. We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's well overdue. Just a general question. So in regards to the amount of hours that were on the contract and the way I interpreted your contract, was that we're responsible for payroll, we're responsible for bank reconciliations, really everything else above and beyond that, reviews and actual, boots on the ground, doing the work, that falls under your contract. Is there anything I'm missing in that kind of general statement?
Yeah.
There is.
No, you're not missing, I'm sorry. I was
Okay.
just yes-anding you,
Okay.
as far as saying, like budget preparation support is all, levy support, audit, like those are typically the 3 biggest finance director type items that are above and beyond what the monthly accounting is.
Okay.
And we're expected to do all of those items and support those, especially with Bob having all the experience within Prospect Heights with budgeting. He's gonna be able to apply those. That's a December year end. So he's gonna be going through a lot of scenarios and like what's going on with the state taxes and different things like that as he's applying that forward into this budgetary process. So, yeah, all of that is what is kind of the main meat and potatoes of the finance director role is some of those.
And I think you should clarify, for Russ's benefit, we did say for him to get up to speed in Cassell, you're not going to charge extra if we can get that done in the first couple months. You're not charging an extra for helping to train in the
I mean,
module.
We're expecting that to be a part of the time when we're out, is the
Yeah.
training and support to help him get up to speed. We think it's critically important for
Everyone.
Russ and for everybody to make this work well, as for Russ to get
Comfortable with Cassell.
comfortable. And all the tricks that Bob's learned all of these years of how to run reports and how to get information, we want to bring that to the table.
Those things can benefit the finance committee,
You have to use the mic, so
Those
for
things can benefit the
Tracy. Yeah.
finance committee, learning how to run reports through Cassell and get what you want, what you need, and focus on certain line items, certain aspects of the financial statement, you want to see that, so I can show that to Russ and how to get that done, or run it myself too, and represent it for the finance committee.
And I just had a follow-up, a peace of mind type question for you. You guys have had adequate opportunity, and you're super familiar with our books from your history doing our audits. You're really confident that the 10 to 12 hours is adequate? We're not going to exceed that? I mean, what you budgeted is,
We're as confident as we can be without being in the role. I mean, we're going off of information that came from Mark about what the role was that we were gonna play, and then the role that Russ and the team were going to play. So that was, we're trying to bake all that into what we expect it to be, in order to do it.
it's reasonable. Thank you.
Okay, Kim, you have a question or a
Yeah, well,
comment?
just a clarification. I just want to kind of restate that the audit side of your house is different from your,
Very different,
yes, yes.
two completely
So
different
you're not
departments.
familiar with our books?
We have had conversations with them to understand, and we
Yeah.
are able to read the audit report and know
Well,
what's
just
going
like the
on,
public
and-
can read it?
and Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was
Yeah,
clear.
I've said that before. There are two distinct
Neither of us
lines.
have been on the audit before.
Okay, any other trustees have comments or questions for Bob or Matt?
Okay, then we could maybe say goodbye to them and have our internal
Yeah, we
debate
can
that
do our
Trace
I've
wants.
got,
Uh,
I've just got one more for them.
Okay, go ahead.
Excuse me, can I
Yeah,
go?
yeah, go ahead, Therese.
Okay, so I think if we had had sort of, non-controversial books, audits the last couple of years, but we had overspent by quite a bit. We had a treasurer with some issues. And so unfortunately, we've got to go back and reconcile some accounts, prior to today, which would mean you all would be working on the books and helping out with work that you audited. I understand you may have a Chinese wall. I am very concerned about you working on the same work that you audited. I have no problem with you working on stuff going forward. But I'm also an attorney by training, and I would never recommend this or allow this ever, under any circumstance, having you work on the same numbers that you audited prior. If everything had worked out fine and our books were completed and there were no issues with reconciliations, I would feel differently. But because of our particular circumstance, I find that to be a big issue. And if you've got a comment on that, that's great. I'd love to hear it.
The key, and I've said it, and Matt and Bob can, Therese, but they're not gonna be working on any of the audited work, because we're gonna have a new auditor, as we've said, for the budget year that, so they're not working on their own audited numbers at all.
Well, our books are not up to date. So the group that's here is still going back in time and auditing old records to get the Cassell system up to date to use it properly. So yeah, there's still that work. That work isn't done yet. And so if they take over, when are they planning on taking over? When they take over, that work needs to be done then. So you've got to wait the time for that to all be done. That's not done from what I understand. Is Russ there to comment on that?
Yeah, but they're starting May 1, which is the 26, 27 budget. And
It doesn't matter. So they're not going to touch anything prior to that. Is that what you're telling me?
they could touch stuff but the audit.
Exactly.
The auditors that are gonna come in, the new firm.
That's not what I'm talking about. I have no problem with
Therese,
with the
Therese,
auditors
the
coming
new-
in.
The new audit team will be looking at the 25, 26 budget year. So even if they did help Russ with stuff to reconcile, the audit is over the 25, 26 that we just are completing. So if they were helping Russ with any of that year, this current budget year that we're just closing out, there'd be a different audit firm than Lauterbach and Amon on that. So there will be
Okay.
no conflict there.
No, with all due respect, Mark, I know what your opinion is on it. I was asking Bob and Matt.
Yeah.
And it's my opinion, and you and I may differ on this, that there will be work done on the books prior to the books as of May 1st, 2026, that we need to have still reconciled. I do not believe all the prior accounts that Timothy did not reconcile for 2.5 years have all been reconciled. And so I don't believe that so that is absolutely, at least if you go back a year, there's still a 1.5 years that could potentially impact dates when they were the auditor. I understand that the new auditors will handle the last year's worth of entries, but if we go prior to that, which is my understanding, that those reconciliations are not all done. I just would like to know whether or not they find that to be a conflict or an issue, and I'm just wondering what their opinion is.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'm trying to understand, like, what we're talking, like, because we have an audit that's finalized for 4/30 of '25, and then that is done and completed, that audit is final, and then it has been moving forward towards 4/30 of '26, and Russ has been working on the bank recs throughout the course of this year. We're not even starting till May. So I'm
Okay,
trying to
I don't
understand
believe the bank,
what we're talking
I believe
about.
I think maybe we need to get, an understanding from Russ that how far back the bank reconciliations needed to be redone. I believe they had to be redone back to the day that Timothy started working as our treasurer, which is 2.5 years ago. So if I'm wrong on that, Russ can correct that for me. It was my understanding that those bank recs are still being worked on because there's been a lot of issues, learning curves and all that with Cassell. So it would predate the date that the new auditor would be working on
Russ,
by about a 1.5 years.
Do you want to respond to that or add anything?
Sure. So what Teresa's referring to is that the previous treasurer reconciled, as far as we know, the bank accounts through May 31st of 2025, okay? If he did them on an Excel spreadsheet, if he did them on the back of a napkin, we're not sure, okay? But he did not do them in Cassell. So if I was on the phone yesterday on a support call with Cassell, trying to get some other out-of-balance issues, and they had to go back and restate opening balances, and I had to get them back to your April 30th, 2025 balances. And apparently, everything has been straightened out now, except there's all this stuff, lack of a better term, with the bank recs, okay? And so we need to go in and try, we'd like to start doing them in the system. It only makes sense. Do you do them in Cassell?
Yes, we do it for Cassell.
Yeah, I mean, it only makes sense, because what I've seen is an Excel spreadsheet that has, beginning balance, cash receipt, dispersed outstanding checks, and then a variance, okay? And that variance could be $83, it could be $3,000, it could be $17,000 one month, it doesn't give me a warm fuzzy feeling when there's variances in your bank recs. And it's because he wasn't doing it through the system. So we need to try to get that. Now, from what we can tell, the last time they were done in Cassell goes back to when, shortly or around the time Rebecca was here, which was summer of 2022.
Who was here?
Rebecca.
Oh.
I think it was around, I think she left in like August of
Tracy would
2022.
know. She worked with her, 22.
Yeah. So that's the last time they were done in the system. So I don't know how we're going to tackle that. I don't know if we just try to get up to 4/30/25 and then just come up with some adjusting entries. I don't know. I don't know what we're looking at until we sit down and analyze it and talk to Cassell. So I think that's what she's talking about. Now, there were some other things, and this is things in possibly in the wrong accounts, et cetera, but, at this point, I don't know, Therese, I don't know how far back we go, right? The audit's been done. If it's, if it's a couple $1,000, it's like you don't look. If it's major dollars, I mean, do you look at restating? I don't know.
But generally, you've got finalized numbers through 4/30 of '25. You use that as your kicking off point to then roll forward. That's your beginning balance, and then see what is happening trending because you have a point in time that has been audited. It's been looked at as far as where are things at and the numbers, it's at least materially correct at that point in time. You then start rolling forward from there and see what happens with that variance. That's kind of typical operating procedure. You then got to pick a point in time and then start going.
Right.
And then if you can keep your variance of what you're expecting from 430 of 25 to be the same into 530, or, 6-1, then you're like, okay, we kind of know that we've got it identified and we've got it squared away, that all the current year activity is being done properly.
Right.
And then you're seeing like, okay, if that current year is then stays the same 1 year or 1 month to the next, 1 month to the next, you're identifying all the current activity, you've got the current year problems fixed, and then you can decide what to do with that beginning variance. Do you write it off? Do you do a prior period adjustment? But you just pick and start with that 430 and then see how does the trending go from there.
Right, right. And we just got, all the cash allocations were out of balance, and that's part of what we just took care of yesterday with Casell. So hopefully that will help us start this process.
Yeah.
So the other issue is that there, and I need to look into it further, is that there were some expenditures that were taken out in prior years' audits out of motor fuel tax that should have been taken out of there, that were not, they didn't get a IDOT approval possibly. I don't know that, but it's just something that we're looking into. So that might require some going back to, and again, that's prior to the current fiscal year, which you guys will be working with, so like I said, there's, and again, that's, I'm here, and your involvement, it depends on what your level of involvement would need to be, dependent on, if we work through it together, it could be asking you a few questions, or it could be, hey, guys, this is a head scratcher, it's up to you, you're the experts. I don't know.
Yeah.
Until we.
That's why I get in here and sit down and talk to you and look at it and see where you're at.
Frank, go
So,
ahead.
so
Go
just to
ahead.
ask a question, it sounds like the audit was done, it was filed, we're done. So going back to the Stone Age where there were checkbooks being used, you write a check to somebody, you forget who you wrote it to, it doesn't show up anywhere, but you know what your balance is in the account, so you just kind of go forward and kind of balance from there. And I think the issue we're having internally is some of that ledger isn't matching up, right? The GLs aren't footing, or they're out of balance in some cases. So we're trying to put all that back together, and the question is that really that necessary to do, especially when the audit's already been done and filed and accepted by everybody? So my understanding from what you guys are saying is we just need to fix going forward to make sure we know what's going on. And then when the next company comes in, and if something would pop up and we need a separate audit, we can request one, and the company that would be auditing us would not be Lauterbach and Amon. So whatever happened over those last couple of years when everything was screwed up, just as history, and we create our new history going forward. Am I correct in
Yeah,
stating
and
that?
you wouldn't go back and redo the audit. You'd end up recording prior period adjustments within the current year audit if something was found. Like, that's a pretty normal thing in a lot of ways, and a lot of times, sometimes it's not even due to errors. It's different people's accounting methodologies. Like, certain auditors have a certain view on how to account for something versus another one, and there ends up being a change for that. Like, you just end up restating the beginning balances, you disclose that in your financial statement footnotes, and away you go, and you just keep moving. You don't redo the audit.
And quite
again.
probably, if we went with a different, and we are going to go with a different audit firm, if you and Russ, Patsy, Bob coming in, find an error, a funding balance that we find suspect, you went and you do your general audit, and then you could do a specific, more forensic audit of that fund account to find a serious error that Russ and Bob might identify, and that would be obviously not Lauterbach and Amon. It would be the new audit firm doing a forensic audit on the troubled area, and then we'd find out in detail maybe if there's an issue.
Yeah, technically it would be called an agreed-upon procedures
Yes.
review into something.
Yes.
Forensic makes it
Forensic makes
way-
it sound way more like private
way more
business.
detailed and way more,
Yeah.
CSI,
Yes.
and much more expensive than just identifying one
Yes,
area that you want to
thank you
look at.
for clarifying that. So and that's what Russ, working with Bob, would identify Therese, and then that new accounting firm, we would set that up as a separate expense for them to do that detailed look, not at the whole
And again,
audit, but just to the areas that we have concerns or
it depends.
questions
Everything
on.
depends on how material and
It,
how
can I say
significant
something
it
real quick?
was.
Yep.
I can say something?
Barb's ready?
yes,
She's saying
yes.
yes.
Okay.
Go
I
on,
just,
please.
I'm only hearing, I've got my phone turned like all the way up, so I'm not hearing everything, but, it sounds to me like, it's something I would like to maybe sit down in person with, Bob and Matt, or one or both, and then just kind of go over some of this again. I don't have the best connections. I'm hearing most of what you're all saying, but, when I get back into town, if that would be acceptable to everyone, if I could do that.
Yeah, and Russ is setting up some time with Bob on both he and Bob's schedule, and you could come on the day that Bob is with Russ. We'll
Yeah,
set-
because I think there's some other, sort of other issues that I'm not gonna necessarily bring them all up now that, Bob might even listen to and say that we may need a forensic audit on certain time periods. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, well, all right, so that, I think everybody's, we
Okay.
really appreciate you coming out.
Yep.
And President Woznicki will,
We'll have an internal discussion and get in touch with you later.
yep. Yeah, Bob and Russ, you'll set up your schedule.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
All right. guys,
Thank you for being here. Don't forget your water bottle.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I do forget that, from time to
That-
time.
that
I have,
thermos-
water bottles all across the state of Illinois.
All righty. All right.
Good night.
Nice to meet both of you.
So I think we're at 6A?
Yeah, no, we're at 4A.
4B.
Oh.
No, we've got Finance Committee.
You did that already.
All right, nothing to add, okay. All right, Kim, go ahead.
So, just a comment on the Finance Committee. Up until about 2.5 years ago, what the Finance Committee is saying that they want is what they had. So it was a product of whatever was going on prior to this current board. And I know, because I would attend those meetings, and they were definitely a working committee that started in October. So I just wanted to state that.
Okay. Do we need more members of Finance? I think we need one more member,
It would be
possibly.
nice to have at least one more.
At least one more
Yeah,
member.
because, we're literally, right at enough to have a quorum, or maybe one extra. And if actually Tim does resign or not
That would be
re-up,
sad.
then we will definitely need somebody. But I'm
Okay.
hoping that we can make the changes that he suggested and what trustee Muir just said, kind of go back to where the finance committee has more active participation, gets to view the financials on a regular basis, line item by line item versus just a summary, and that they can be more involved in the budget process. And they want to meet with the board, with trustees. He said, it must have been a meeting of the whole, because the way he described it, there was more than 2 trustees in those meetings.
Good.
So it must have
Yeah.
been a meeting of the whole where everybody just got together and had a discussion, so.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, there used to be at least 1 to 2 workshops. So it was a meeting of the whole,
Nice.
and they were called workshops,
Okay,
budget workshops. And quite literally, that's all that was being done.
all right. And if any of the trustees know anybody that would like to serve on our Finance Committee, definitely Kim.
Well, it's a shame that we have your spouse or family member can't serve on it, because I know my husband would want to do it, but he can't, so.
Okay. Well, if there's any neighbors or friends that, that would like to serve, just let us know. All right, we'll move on. You're done, Frank? Anything else? Okay. All right, we'll go to action items. Motion to approve ordinance 26-30, approving the annual municipal budget for the fiscal year 2026, 2027. Discussion? Motion?
So
Kim?
moved.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. Second by Nick, and roll call?
Discussion.
Discussion. Go ahead.
And if we could let Russ has a quick review, I think it'll make it clear.
All right, the budget that I sent you yesterday looks a lot like the one from last week. Most notably, though, was we picked up about 100,000 in revenues from the interest income line item that I just blew it in my first draft, and it
Hey,
came to light
Russ,
in the.
can you make sure you're talking into the microphone so I can hear you?
I am.
Yeah, that might be better.
So the most notable change from that last draft was about $100,000 of interest income. And that came out at the Finance Committee meeting. So I added that in. I think maybe the best thing to do would be to take a look at this version log. And if we look at the version that was reviewed at last week's meeting, there was about a $423,000 deficit, okay, in the general fund. And for all funds total, about $88,000 deficit. With the changes that I made since that time, and I want to talk to you about a couple of these. So one was, you see $15,000 increase in sales taxes. That was something that was identified and suggested by the Finance Committee at last Thursday's meeting. 103,000 positive adjustment to the general fund for the interest income line item. And then a couple of smaller interest income adjustments. I just tweaked the interest income for road and bridge in the capital expenditures fund. Total of about $750 there. On the downside, I realized that when Tracy sent me an email about Civic and training on my Viewpoint modules, that the cost of those modules was not included. So I had to add an expense for $8,800, which includes the implementation and the annual fees for, it's not Civic AP, I apologize, it's the ACH and my Viewpoint modules. Then I communicated with Tracy, and I think I misunderstood, because I thought there were more things in the original proposal from Civic, such as payroll, community development, business licenses, and I thought those were just pushed off by the board, but they were still we were still obligated to expend those funds, but that wasn't going to happen till later this year. So you'll see there's also a downward adjustment, $22,200, which would be for the implementation and the monthly fees for those modules. But I've since now been told that those were not approved, and we do not have to move forward with those. So that's going to be a call that up to you guys, up to the board. Do you want to include that $22,000, or are we just going to hold off on anything payroll or community development, business license related? The other change that I made to the budget that you have is that I had called the Kansas State Bank to get a payoff. This has to do with the radio leases for the police department, and it's that $44,000 question. And I got a payoff letter from them as of, I think, June 1st. So if we pay it off before that date, it was actually like 26,527. So we'll need to, if the board is, agrees to paying that off, that would be another expense of $2,500. That, I should mention, is in the capital projects fund. That's not in the general fund. So after those changes, where it sits right now, assuming you agree with all those changes, is that overall for the village, we actually have a surplus of $19,000. That's taking into account all funds. And for the general fund, it's a negative $314,000. The way I presented it, and I had a conversation with Janet earlier today, and if I misunderstood your guys' intentions, I apologize. But I know we had talked about moving money out of, that you didn't want to use unrestricted fund balance, is what Janet was saying, and that you wanted to move money out of the capital projects fund. But I don't see how that can be done, because it was under the premise to reimburse the general fund for road expenditures, but there haven't been any road expenditures taken out of the general fund. So all the road expenditures were taken out of capital projects. So there's no, you can't, well, you could reimburse yourself for expenditures you made in that fund, but it's not going to have any impact or any effect on anything. So what I proposed in the budget that I sent you was, where did the oh, there we go, fund balance, was to utilize, you'll see here in the general fund that it was, did we lose, Therese, are you there? No. Therese? Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, Therese, I'm sorry, I don't know when you dropped off.
Oh, just start where you were. That's okay.
Okay. So anyway, the way I presented the budget was so that we would be able to get a budget passed tonight, was to just use unassigned fund balance which the general fund has, okay, to cover that. And then if there was some other changes that could be made, if we found some revenue source somewhere, you could always do an amendment to the budget after this gets approved tonight.
So basically, Russ, and I've reviewed it with Russ, you'd be making a recommendation as an amendment to use 314,000, what is it, in change?
Well, I've got to put through those other changes in here, but it would be 314,495.
As amendment from unrestricted fund balance to have a balanced budget for the year because of the structural deficit that we spoke of, chiefly from the LGDF and the use tax being off by 400,000. If you go back to 2025's budget, it's dropped that much. That's really the largest part of it. And so that we would use this year the unrestricted fund balance to get to a balanced budget, and we can do that budget amendment sometime in May or June.
And then have conversations at future meetings about, because again, this, a year from now, we're probably going to be in a very similar spot, okay? Because unless there's some significant increase in state revenue, sales tax, use tax, whatever, operating expenses keep going up, we're going to be in the same position a year from now. So now might be the time to start having conversations about how do we deal with this in the future.
And where I suggested, and maybe it wasn't clear last meeting, I want to put it on the record that one of the suggestions I would make is that we have 280 in the police pension, and it's probably going to grow to 300 very shortly, that we just pass the intent for May 1st of '27 to have a property tax to support the police pension. And if that's roughly 300,000, you've largely closed most of the deficit of, which will probably be 400 next year estimated. So then you could spend 100,000 instead of 300,000 in unrestricted fund balance. And then in the following year, you should start having the revenue from the development that is occurring south of 38, and that at roughly 6,500 to 7,000 after expenses per home, that will get you to some balanced budgets for the next 20 years. And then in that generation, we'll have to deal with the structural deficit that would be larger than 400,000 without a new revenue stream, that when that revenue stream departs us. But tonight, we'd be asking for the 314,400 and, I forget the number.
314, yeah. Hold on.
To get to a balanced budget this year.
495. thank you.
495.
Frank?
So it came up in the Finance Committee as well, a discussion about the police pension. And Tim was saying that, we're funded at what, Russ, 94%?
The last report through May of, April 30th of 2025 was like about 94%.
So it's something that we can actually look at, because the way it was described and discussed is that it really goes by how old your police officers are and how many are going to be coming off to retirement in what years, and you can plan that. So if you have a relatively young police force, you can actually fund that pension at around 80%, which I think is kind of the low end. And then if you know which police officers might be retiring based on their ages coming up, you can play with that number a little bit, that you don't necessarily need to be at 100% or 98% or 94%. It just really depends. So I would suggest that we talk to Chief Levan and say, hey, based on your estimation, when do you think some of these police officers are going to be retiring? And that could determine how much or how little we have to fund the pension. And then if we can get to 2029, which I think is going to be the year where we actually start seeing some of that money from the new subdivision, then we can do what we need to do to get it back up to a number that maybe we're more comfortable with. But I think that's a discussion we could have to get us through the next year or two.
Yeah, and we could work with the Police Pension Board and the Finance Committee to address that very point. But there is a statutory requirement to get to, I think it's 90%.
90.
You have to be at 90%, and I think it's 20, yeah. So without jeopardizing that, but we can do a sensitivity analysis with Lauterbach and Amon, that's the police pension accountants, and have that discussion before you would create the property tax. I do believe at some point we're going to have to get to that, but I'd like to be proven wrong by the Lauterbach and Amon and sensitivity analysis. Yes, that definitely could enter into the, before you make the move as a board to create a property tax.
Kim?
Okay, so being kind of the village historian, years past, back to, before the state of Illinois mandated that they take care of and manage those funds, we used to be 110% funded on our police pension. We were one of 4 municipalities in the entire state that was fully funded for many, many years.
Yeah.
Now, I get where we can do this cycle. We do have somebody coming up for retirement here in probably what? 6 months. So yes, it's worth the effort, but again, we need to make sure that we're doing that 90. I would prefer being closer to that 100%, because I personally, even not being a board member, but being on other things and being involved, I was very proud that this village, with its limited funds, was one of 4 municipalities that was fully funded for many years.
We're pretty fortunate, too, because we do have a pretty young police force. James has done a really good job at hiring officers, and very proud of him.
Russ and I hear you loud and clear, and Dan Hoffman is the chair of that police pension fund, and we can have a conversation with him, and they can have Lauterbach run a sensitivity analysis of different ways before we make a recommendation on something as life-altering as creating a property tax.
Yeah, and to retire Chief Hoffman's credit, he does an excellent job running that
Yeah.
commissioning committee.
Yeah.
So we'll take that under advisement and work with him on that.
Nick?
Yeah, before we agree to how we're gonna deal with the deficit, I had a couple items on general fund year-to-year tab that I wanted to go through. Line 104330. Let me get myself to that line also. The police fines. I've spoken to the chief several times. I spoke to him today. He just had an officer go through truck enforcement training, and either yesterday or today was his first day back on the streets with that training. He's very confident that he'll exceed $70,000 on that line item. He's very comfortable with us making that change, so I would propose that we change the fiscal year 27 budget to $70,000 on line 104330. -4330, police fines under general fund fines revenue. And I'm just gonna keep ripping through these. Do we have, go ahead.
I don't know how we want to handle it. Do we want to get an agreement on that? Because then I can go ahead and I can start making changes right here.
Yeah, if we have consensus to change that line item up it to 70, do we hear any objections to adjusting that? Because I think it's reasonable to do as well. So if we could make that adjustment, Russ will keep tab each time, and if there's agreement, we'll make that change, and then that 314 and change will go down.
Could you just repeat what the change was?
Sure, line, maybe pass the phone.
Yeah, there you go.
Here, we'll just pass the phone around, so. It's line 10-4330, it's under.
Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, so changing that from fiscal year 27 budget, 35,000 to 70,000. And that's based on, did you hear anything?
You know what, I heard just a little bit of it.
Okay, I just don't want to repeat myself unnecessarily. Several conversations with the chief. He's very confident that he could actually exceed that. He feels like this is a conservative number that he can manage based on truck enforcement. Just had an officer come out of training today or yesterday were their first day on the street, so he's definitely has kind of an initiative in place. So proposing to change it to $70,000.
Okay, I agree then, I remember the truck enforcement conversation, so yep, I'm a yes then,
Okay.
thanks.
Go to your next one.
So do we need to ask for a consensus? Do you want me to pause? We have it, okay.
Yeah, it looks like we have it.
10-4990 miscellaneous revenue, I believe that is the line that we last year allocated for grant revenue. We exceeded, and one, I'd like to confirm that, but we did exceed that miscellaneous revenue, and 27 budget has it dropped back down to $7,000. I would like to see that back at the 26 budget, and we push ourselves again to hit it or beat it like we did last year. So Teresa, that was 10-4990.
Yep, gotcha, and I see that, yep, I'd be up for upping that as well.
I mean, last year I was hoping, you know, if it were me, I would push it up 10% every year, but I think $100,000, if we put that back into 27, is conservative.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we put that in for last year.
So you're saying to raise the police grant?
No,
Or just
10-4990, the miscellaneous, just matching fiscal year 26 budget.
Grant.
And that would be consistent with us not wanting to budget for grants, even though I personally think it's okay. But as long as there's a separate line item for it, I agree with trustee Boatner that we should put a line in the sand and say that's the goal that we should push for.
All right. Anything
Should we
else?
rename it, or
No.
Unless you want to budget for grants.
Yeah, the whole idea was that we couldn't really budget for grants, so we created the miscellaneous income line item.
no? Got it.
All right.
So that changes 90, how much?
So we had 35 and 93 right now.
Extra.
No, I'm sorry, 80, 93 and 35.
90, yes. So there's consensus, Russ, to move 7,000 to the 100,000, so that's a net 93 positive.
93 pickup, yep.
Yep.
So then the next was a question and possibly also a request for a change in 1001-5330 Village Board Legal. I'm glad to see it down, and if for any reason we do need more, I like that we do need to come up publicly and have a budget amendment. But there's also police legal 1021-5330, which went up significantly. So if we go to 1021-5330, that's really the more important one. Police general legal, am I on the right one? 1021-5330.
Is it 10:01, 53:30?
I'm sorry, I wrote it down. I'm gonna be
1021.
General legal
1021,
service?
5330.
Yeah.
The police budget doubled, and Chief Levan does not believe that that needs to double. I questioned it. He said that he also questioned it. However, I wasn't sure if we took from village board legal and just moved it to police legal, if that was the reason for it. Otherwise, I would suggest that the police budget for legal get cut in half to match the fiscal year 26 forecast of 14,545.
I would agree.
Chief doesn't believe that there's any reason to have the double budget this year.
Yeah, I think it's easily justified too, because if you go back to fiscal '24 was the last time we had a similar number, and we all know we had problems back then. So if you look at at '25 and the '26 forecast, it would be consistent with using half that number.
So what net number is that, Russ? We're on the same page.
I think we should budget 15, because one's at 14,545, that's the year-to-date, and the 25 actual was 16,5, so maybe we can budget right in between.
That makes sense.
15?
Yeah, 15, it's a round number.
And it was at what number?
It was at it was at 29,449. Last year, the spend was 14,545, so we're increasing it, $450.
So we're at a net positive now of 113,000.
I'm not keeping track, but.
I am.
Okay, yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you, Teresa. Probably very close to that. The next item was, I didn't put a line item, but the community relations budget. I just wanted to point out that April 10th, 2027, within this next budget year, is our 20th anniversary for the village. And potentially, this is an area where we may want to consider increasing the budget if the village would like to do anything to recognize, 2 decades of a village. So whether it be an additional $1,500, just something to allocate towards the 20th anniversary of the village.
I would agree.
I would definitely agree, and I think we should even do a flag contest.
something, maybe 1,500's not enough. I mean, I don't really believe it is. I would like to see more, but based on what we're dealing with the budget, I think $1,500 could get some promotional banners out, you know, do something, you know.
I like the flag idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
Love it.
I would agree, and if we are gonna, review this in May, or, you know, we talked about, we can always, you know, adjust them, but at least we get a placeholder in.
Okay, so I had suggested
So-
$1,500.
So take that from 3,600 up to 5,100 for the year?
I would agree.
I've got it at,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
oh, you guys, I'm looking at 10/21/56/40, is that the right line item?
You know, I apologize, I didn't write it
No,
down.
actually, it would be 10-11-9370.
Oh, okay, so there's also a community relations at 10/21/56/40 for 1,000.
One of those, I think, is broke out for National Night Out specific.
Yes, it
Yeah, I
is.
would
Oh,
leave it
okay.
there.
Because that
Let me
one,
see.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what, the one that I'm looking at is under, I'm not sure where it's under. It's, I don't know. It is under police service expenditures. So we've got 1,000 under that one, so that must be for the night out. So what number was it then, Russ?
I believe you
It
said,
it was 10-11-9370. It'll be on that CR tab if you're looking at the Excel file.
No, yeah, okay, 10, 11. I'll just trust you on it, I don't see it.
In the green tabs, the first one's board, then GA, and then CR.
That's all right, you don't need to waste time on me on that one, I don't see it. It's okay. It's fine, whatever you guys, what was the number at, and you guys are increasing it by 1,500?
$1,500.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So it sounds like there's a consensus on that. I'll move on to.
Oh, I found it.
Oh, I'm sorry. So,
Sorry, I did find it, sorry. And there's the National Night Out below it for $550. So I'm not sure what that other community relations is for them. There is $1,000 down on, 10/21/56/40. So the National Night Out is up above.
That's the general ledger for the police department, if I'm not mistaken, right?
it's police service expenditures.
Yeah, so that's gonna be the, things like this and the things that they produce, that they hand out for community interaction.
Oh, so like
And-
stickers that they carry in the trunk, things like that to hand to kids?
Yes, and,
Okay.
and things that they might do with, the schools in particular.
That makes sense. Did you hear that, Therese?
So yeah, so we just leave that one alone then, or the 1,000? Just
Yes.
leave it there?
Yeah, that's
okay.
very, very conservative too, by the way.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, okay.
The last one, then moving on, is 10-11-4210. Let me get to that. Okay, so this is salaries regular, and in the notes, it has Russ and Julie at 19 hours a week. And my question is, and I know this is gonna take more calculating, Russ at 19 hours a week, however, I do believe that if Julie continues as payroll, is there, what did we say, it's like 8 hours bi-weekly? So would this be 4 hours per week? Again, referring to, I know that with some it is a controversial topic, but the org chart, do we have 3 different people now, full-time in the budget, and are we agreeing to this? Because I don't know, and it's not 3 full-time people, I thought. This much staff. I think this is the time to clarify what we're gonna be doing going forward.
I think the budget is the most conservative,
That's
worst-case scenario of 19
Mhm.
throughout,
week.
per
For the
week.
rest of the year.
Yes, it couldn't exceed that because, quite honestly, Russ and Julie retired and they got an IMRF consideration
That's
that
right.
they can only work that max number. So that's the conservative budgeting, worst-case scenario, it probably will come in under that. But, you know,
But we're given the approval for that many hours.
Yes.
And then it leads and it adds to a deficit that we're dealing with. And I'm just saying that I don't know that, I didn't get the feeling that once this work was done, getting things caught up, that we ongoing needed the private firm plus 2 part-time people plus Michelle, all working on payroll and bookkeeping.
yeah.
It seems like a lot of staff. Like,
And I think we could ask Russ. I mean, he's
Yeah.
had some discussion with Julie, obviously more closely than
Yeah,
I have.
We were just talking about that, yeah, the other day.
Yeah, who knows, right? I mean, seriously, right now, we're caught up in trying to, what's going through our heads is all the stuff that wasn't done, and now we've been trying to catch up, set up procedures, whatever. In an ideal world, it would be nice that could be a lower number. I still think, and again, this is just my personal feeling, I still think 10 to 12 hours a week of Lauterbach and Amen is light, okay, for what has to be done. There's a lot of moving parts to the accounting and finance side of it. I mean, you know, you look at things like, you know, the transfers, payroll transfers, pension transfers, all these other things, all that stuff needs to get done, and there's times when it needs to, is that the day when Lauterbach is here or they're not here? So that means somebody here needs to handle that. I don't know. I wish I had I would like to say that that's high, but I don't know that that is. You know, I haven't been around, so I don't know the history of the village, but my understanding is that at one point there was, you know, there was a full-time treasurer, there was an administrative assistant, there were other people here. And was that maybe too much? Possibly, but then some of those people left, some of those people were let go. And all of a sudden now it just came down to Michelle and Tim, okay? And Tim was doing 28 hours a week, okay? And stuff wasn't getting done. So.
I think so we're clear, there was a 40-hour person that was not, we haven't budgeted or filled that role for 2 years. And that's what Russ is speaking to Nick.
And again, I don't know how much, I know that Michelle is now doing some of the clerk stuff, trying to help, not yet, okay. But I mean, if that's gonna happen, then that's gonna cut into her hours in terms of the accounting side of things, so, I wish I could give you a better answer, Nick, but I don't know.
And wasn't,
It's safer to budget for it, because what Julie's not just doing payroll, there is a component of health insurance, enrolling people, new employees in the police department correctly the first time, and getting their benefits straight. That's highly fluctuates with changes in personnel at the police side. So that's a worst case of 19. It can't get greater than that.
but isn't Julie too going to strictly do payroll pretty soon, right? She's gonna cut back a little bit?
She will, but if we have a lot of changes in the police department, there's a lot of benefit coordination to be done, just on health and life insurance and dental.
And the open enrollment and that whole process that, you know, I mean, it's unfortunate that there wasn't much done for the staff in terms of open enrollment and educating them in terms of what was available for them. So now that somebody's here, it's nice to have somebody here on a regular basis and to just come in you know, once every 2 weeks to do payroll, you know, you still don't have that, any HR presence here. But again, that's your call, that's your guys' call in terms of
I mean,
what
we.
you want it to
yeah.
look like.
Yeah, we
you know.
love her here. I'm just thinking of her IMRF and.
And
yeah.
again, keep in mind that those two people in the budget are not me and Julie, okay? I keep saying, we want to go back to retirement, so you're going to need to find somebody. Now, do you find somebody, can some of this stuff be taken on by the administrator? You know, the new village, I don't know. I don't know what's, you know, how that'll play into it. Which if it's a hands-on, you know, person and you don't have all this development work that Mark was doing, maybe they can take a more active role in the HR and payroll side, and then you can cut those hours down. But until we figure out the staffing of it, I don't know. Again, I haven't been here long enough under normal working conditions to tell you how long it's gonna take.
Sure.
You follow me?
I do 100%. So I would argue that we have faith in the contract that we engaged in. I feel like some of this is skepticism that the professional firm that we hired has underanalyzed the workload. I, however, believe that they've done a perfectly adequate job of analyzing it and know what they're getting into. I think that a lot of what Julie and Russ currently are working on is catch-up work. After talking to Lauterbach and Amond, I think that that's going to get streamlined significantly with their oversight and their advice. I would rather, and I would propose that we reevaluate this with Julie at 8 hours a week. And in the event that we needed to make a budget amendment, that at that time, we could make an argument for why we need more hours. Versus giving a worst-case scenario right now when we have to deal with that money in a deficit. We just engaged a company that it appears this budget is trying to compensate for their lack of ability to uphold their end of the deal. So I don't, like I said, that's more of a complicated, I don't have a number to propose outside of the hours.
Frank?
So my comment is, I think we should all listen to what Russ actually said, and that Julie and Russ are going into retirement again, and they're not going to be the people. So the real question is, how many hours is it going to take to actually do that role, to Nick's point? So it's not necessarily a Julie question or a Russ question. And realistically, even if they weren't going to retire, it's a question that's suited to the role and the responsibilities, not necessarily the people, right? So I hear you, you know, of what your intent is and what Julie's intent is. So I think that's the way we need to look at it, and I would agree with Trustee Boatner that we can lower it, and then if we find out we need more, because quite honestly, we don't even know with the new administrator, you know, what that's going to look like, but I think we're all in agreement that it has to be somebody who, you know, can roll up their sleeves and dig in and do various functions, just because we don't have a huge staff. So that role, I think, will eat up you know, some of these responsibilities and that we're talking about. So.
Can I add something?
Yes, Therese, go ahead.
So I was going to say, we also, though, probably need to listen to Russ on him. I mean, what I heard him say just a couple minutes ago was that the 10 to 12 hours, in his opinion, is very light. And so instead of us trusting that Lauterbach and Amond has gotten this right and they don't have the experience, Russ does. He's been with us now for, you know, a few months or several months, whatever. And I think he said this more than once, and we're not listening to him on that.
Frank? You? No?
Yeah, no, look, I guess I have more faith in Lauterbach and Amond in what was laid out to them, and they basically said they're not necessarily going to hold us to those hours. unless they consistently go significantly over those hours, and then they'll come back to us and have a conversation. So the fee is the fee, what we're gonna pay them, and they're gonna do the work that's necessary to be done. And somewhere down the road, if they say, hey, instead of 12 hours, it's 20 hours, we're gonna have to relook at that. They'll have to come back to the board's gonna have to have a discussion, and we'll need to figure out how we wanna proceed. That might look like, hey, new administrator, you might need to take more on, or new administrator, can we hire somebody else at a much lower rate to fulfill some of the things that maybe Lauterbach and Amen are getting involved in. So I guess I have more confidence in a professional firm, just like I have confidence in our attorney. You know, they're paid to do their job, and they're hired because of their qualifications, and I think we need to trust that. And all due respect to Russ, I understand what his opinion is, I listen to his opinion, and at that point, we just have to balance, you know, and make a sound decision. So.
Can I respond, Barbara?
Yes, go ahead, Therese.
And I'm just gonna say this as, you know, from my background, you wanna get that in the contract then. What they're gonna do for us is what's in their contract. And so all these other side conversations really, which is why I know we had talked about this, about renegotiating parts of that contract so that it's saying the right things, so that we do have that flexibility, because at the end of the day, they have a legal department too, and they're going to tell them, you guys are doing what the contract says. So just a last warning to the group that I know none of you ever want to hear.
All right, anybody else?
So just, if we did cut 8 hours off that number, it would be basically $1,280 savings per month. So you could reduce it by 10,000 probably and be not too liberal in cutting the workload. So if you just reduced it, that total line item by 10, I don't think that would be too far afield, but reducing it more than that would be, I think, dangerous.
Yeah, I think that that's all I would be proposing, and in the event that we need more, we come back and we do a budget amendment if it's needed, but at that time, we can talk about why it's needed.
All right, are we ready to vote? Are we ready to move
Now,
on?
can-
Russ,
can-
go
can I,
ahead. Sure.
So, because I can tell you exactly what that would be to bring it down to 8 hours. I can, but before I do that, what's that?
Cutting 8 out of the 19.
I thought he said cut it down to 8.
No, I think he was taking 8.
8 hours out of the 19, okay. All right, and I'll get to that in a second. Question, where are we at with the Casell, with the 22,000 for those additional modules? Are we keeping that in, or are we canceling that for this year and deal with that at some other point?
Did we agree to that? I don't remember. I thought we put that on hold
Well,
to talk about it.
Well, it was put on hold, but if I don't know when that hold is going to end, and if it's going to end during this next fiscal year, then we need to include it in the budget. So I guess that's my question, is do you guys anticipate doing the payroll, community development, business licenses, those other $22,000 worth of expenses this year?
Tracy will respond to that.
Well,
Trace.
I know community development, we will not need until those homes start getting built in the subdivision. And business licenses would probably another whole year of discussion before the board would decide to do that or not. And payroll, I think Lauterbach mentioned wanted it in the fourth quarter of this year for rollout of January 1, I think is what I was told. That's all I know.
Yeah, I think that was the tech committee and the board's discussion, was just do the payroll in the fourth quarter. Because Paychex is working fine now, but with the approval processes and streamlining the amount of hours to do that payroll, it could save us money on that one.
And I would say with Bob's expertise with Casell, he could tell us along the way what we need, what we don't need.
Yep.
Going
So
forward.
I would recommend we budget for the payroll module, but not the other two.
I would
So
agree.
22,000
would be reduced to just show Russ the payroll function of my pay.
Let's take Kim first and then.
Yeah, I'm going to agree that we definitely want to bring that payroll module in, because regardless, it does tie into that whole Cassell module, so you get your forecasting and everything else. If it's not there, then somebody's doing it manual. And there's, well, it's not only time, but mistakes can happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
So.
Tracy, you want to respond?
And Bob had mentioned the AP workflow. Literally, last Friday, we just launched that. That's the My Viewpoint side of the AP process.
So they go hand in glove. So I think we have. I hear we have consensus, well, three, we haven't heard from Trees, but three of you are shaking. Only keep,
Forward with it?
only
Yes,
go,
it was at a yay or nay.
only go forward with the payroll function,
I'm fine
not
with
the
that.
other two.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay. So we'd reduce it by that amount of the 22,000. Can we give Russ a second to tally the consensus that we've got and the changes to see? I think we're gonna have a unrestricted fund balance of around 170,000, but Russ will give us an exact number.
Do you mind if I get clarification? We're agreeing to the payroll module, but not the community development module, is that correct?
And not the
do they
business,
come together?
and not the business license either. So we'll,
And not the business, yeah, okay.
we're gonna reduce the 22,000 line item to only for the, my pay,
Payroll.
AP, yeah, payroll.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I agree with that.
So there'd be a change to the cost of paychecks in January to switch over to this function. So we'd increase for that module in Cassell, but then reduce the paycheck for 4 months of this budget year. So that's a little complicated, but I think you're gonna be, instead of the 314,000, my math, you're under 170,000. Russ will give us the exact number if you give him a second to plug
So
those
that's-
numbers.
You can look up there, that's what that 13.5 becomes 10.5 for the initial setup fees, and then the annual fees go down to 6,600 from, whatever it was before, I apologize.
So, do you have
Yeah.
all those other changes, what that 314 does now look like?
It was 87, okay, so it went from 8,700 down to 6,600. Okay, so that would just be then the payroll implementation and then the annual fees. Okay. All right, so with those changes, now, before we talk about the payroll, all right, so that brings us down to a deficit of 196,646, okay? All right, and now, so if we take,
Yeah, that's what you said, 170. Yeah, okay.
if we,
Yeah.
all
you
right, so
did
if we
say
take
that.
salaries and we take Julie's position down, so instead of 19 hours a week, we're saying down to 11 hours a week, correct? Okay, so that's 22 pay period. And that brings us now to
There it is.
172,017.
Yeah, I thought it was round, just shy of 175. That's good. So that would be. The recommendation, then, that number, $172 and $17 from the unrestricted fund balance to balance this year's budget. That would be the budget amendment that you'd be making tonight to get to a balanced budget.
Yeah, and again, I don't, you you guys know better than I would. I don't know that it's a budget amendment. I think what we're saying is that somebody. if
You're
somebody would
approving
make
the
a motion-
budget
Approving
with-
the budget. with-
As amended. I
As
should have said
as
it that way,
amended this
as
evening.
amended.
As-
And you'll do a budget amendment later in the year when we're confirming that 172.17 is what we truly need. But you're amending the budget tonight to reflect these new numbers with the changes you just made.
And that budget includes a $172,000 use of unassigned fund balance to make up that shortfall.
So I guess
All right, we ready?
need somebody to amend with these changes, right?
Right, so it would, the motion would be to approve the budget as amended, as discussed this evening. So whoever made the original motion can just amend their motion, and then the second to agree.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, ready to vote? Okay,
The
go
change.
ahead, move forward.
So, yeah, I would say that we go ahead and approve the budget as amended via the by the discussion we had tonight with the numbers.
As amended.
As amended.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right,
Second.
second by Frank. All right, roll call.
Trustee Meir,
Aye.
trustee Benetti,
Aye.
trustee Boatner,
Aye.
President Wodnicki.
Teresa.
Oh, I'm sorry, trustee Hafsenberger.
Aye.
Okay, we don't need President Wodnicki.
Okay, motion passes. All righty, we'll move on to motion to approve ordinance 26-31, amending Title 4, Chapter 5 of video gaming. Do I have a motion? So we can discuss?
Make a motion?
Yeah, all right. Made by Nick, second by
I'll second.
Frank. Discussion? Carmen?
Sure, I included a brief memo in the packet. This is something that I've spoken about with Clerk Johnson. There's been some change to the statute, and that was not reflected in the village code regarding the inability of an applicant to seek reimbursement or refund of their application fee if their application is denied for a video gaming license, and that the terminal fee is to be shared equally between the operator and the license establishment. So the license establishment is where the machine is located. The operator is actually the operator of the machine, which under law cannot be the license establishment. So when you see a video gaming terminal inside of a restaurant, bar, whatever it might be, it's always owned and operated by a third party.
Third party. Mhm. All right, any questions, discussion? All right, roll call.
Trustee Boatner,
Aye.
trustee Benetti,
Aye.
trustee Hafsenberger,
Aye.
trustee Meir.
Aye.
Good, motion passes. Okay, discussion items, website update, and Kim, I think you were gonna take this, am I right?
Yeah, I'll just
Okay.
start with that, I was able to verify that we definitely do not have a May 15th deadline on this, so we do not need to come to some sort of decision on this, like tonight or even next week at our regular meeting. And I suggest that we actually start looking at a couple different, and trustee Boatner did some legwork with another local that we have here in the village. And I just want to make sure that we try to make sure that we're not spending too much money on that, because we really don't. The bigger thing is the back end for the staff. That's where the headache is for the most part. If you were to actually look at other villages' websites, they all pretty much look WordPress-ish. They might not be done in WordPress, but they all have that same look. And ours looks the same. So what we need, quite literally, is the ease of management for staff, just to take away some of their time. So I want to make sure that we're looking at those kind of services. and watching the cost on that. I don't think we need we don't need a redesign other than functionality on the backside. And it'd be nice to see a better content management for all the agendas and the minutes, even for the community.
I agree.
I don't have any trouble with it, but then again, you know, everybody knows what I do for a living, so.
So I guess the takeaway is we'll put it back on the next regular meeting, which may be 5:05 or changing 5:05 to 5:12. So we, as the skeleton staff, can be ready for the 5:05 is going to be a hard turnaround. We'd have to have an agenda out tomorrow morning, and we need a little time to work through some things. So we'd be actually looking at the next additional items. I'd ask if we can get a consensus to move our cancel 5:05 and do a special on 5:12, so we can better be prepared for the discussions and action items and get memos prepared for your review. So if we could say this would be on 5:12, more robust discussion.
Yeah, Nick?
So I do want to quickly just kind of give you a recap of what I have done and found out with a Campton Hills web design company, which is right in the back parking lot, Rival Mind. I sent out a couple memos to the village, to everybody, regarding the initial costing that that they came in at. We were able to get that down to an apples to apples and actually even a more competitive quote versus Civic Plus, where we're and I suppose, kind of to take a step backwards, with Civic Plus, we have to understand that we don't have any ownership of that website. That forever, that 48-month term of $57.23, that goes on forever. When that gets canceled, the website's gone and you have to start from scratch somewhere. Through Rival Mind, they use a system called Duda, and the whole idea is that it's like using Windows. Tracy and I met with them, and it's dragging and dropping things into the back end. Anybody on the staff with an hour of training can get through, navigate, create pages, do updates on the website without writing any code. It's specifically designed to be self-managed. Talking more with Tracy in this meeting, and kind of the $5,700 that we get from Civic Plus includes 24/7 customer support. And when I was talking to the sales rep from Civic Plus, Austin Frank, he kind of left it at that. There wasn't a whole lot more that comes with that. There's not redesigning services, it's support. So that's the extent of it. It's really not needed. We need an easy-to-use website. Go ahead.
Sorry. There is right now in their quote, $495 a year to allow for a redesign in 4 years.
Okay. All right, so you're kind of prepaying.
Prepaying the redesign fee, yeah.
Got it.
Which I'm not a fan of, but it's an option.
Okay. So that $57.23, Rival Mind here, local company, was able to be ultra competitive and actually match the term. So they came in at a reduced price where we'll actually be saving money over the 3-year term. It's actually your first year and then 3 additional years. So I would just suggest that everybody looks over the paperwork that I sent and ask me any questions that they might have about the differences. But if we can support a local company, I think that that's very advantageous for the village. Support our local businesses as much as we can. If there's not something else that we're looking for, I think that it's a pretty easy decision. The cost is lower, ongoing. After year 4, you have $348 to host. That's it. I know our hosting right now is with Helping Hands. One catch with this is it would need to be on the Amazon cloud server, which is just known for security and for hosting enterprise websites. So I could continue to go into this, but I would also say that the few months that we have our existing Nicole on retainer through August, that time is not time to kind of kick the can down the road and hire a web company in July. She's there, she's made herself available to assist with the, not mitigation, the migration of the website.
Kim wants to, yeah.
Okay, I think there's maybe some misinformation there. And I think we paid, if I'm not mistaken, we paid her through May 15th, correct?
Yes, we have not paid her yet till August. That
Okay.
invoice will be on the next
We should not
warrant.
be paying her because we've taken full control of that. So I'm not sure. Helping Hands did the migration. We have full control of that site, full administrative rights. The domains are all in our control except for .gov, which is the state deals with that because it's a .gov. But they're a phone call away if we need to make a change. The site has actually been moved to a own bucket on, what is it, site, whatever that hosting company is. So, I mean, we're incurring $58 a month for that right now. And we can actually change and update modules on it if we want without needing Nicole. So that's about where I stand on that, because we're in control of it now.
Yeah. And the Nicole is a monthly fee, and you do it or you don't do it. You don't have to do it.
That's right.
We're very clear on that.
Okay, anything else?
There just needs to be somebody that's going to fix the code when something doesn't work or what Michelle and I can't make work. That's where Nicole was coming in.
Well, okay, you've got a couple resources on the board, actually, that can help with that if something seriously breaks, but, unless something happens and the company itself takes care of all the code for WordPress in the back to make sure that stuff is up to date, but it doesn't necessarily update your own modules. That's something you've got to do. So, it's something to consider. I'm just trying to make sure that we're not incurring double cost here when we are now under control of that. It's no longer like, it's a harsh word, but it's no longer being held hostage.
So would Helping Hand update the splash menu at the top when you hit, like, say for residents and the liquor license application is there and it doesn't belong there? Is that Helping Hand IT that's going to fix that?
No, because they're not the ones controlling the content.
Right.
And technically, they're gonna be the ones, if something happens with that site, the hosting site, they're gonna be the ones that are gonna call that company if something's going wrong.
Yeah, so they're the IT support. We still do need to look for somebody that can do the code side.
Yeah, but WordPress is, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding why we need Nicole to do that. Is it just a knowledge thing?
For the most part, I mean, I figured out some of the code myself, but when you're spending, 2, 3, 4 hours to update one thing on the website, if the code gets easier, or if there's a platform, I think you said a platform, or Janet said to make it easier, I don't know.
Modules, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this website is just brutal to use on the
Okay.
back end. And I really did like Rival Mind and what they had to say and where they came from with WordPress to where they're at now.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, Nick?
I think ultimately, even though we were able to get the Civic Plus costing down, I still think the ongoing expenses, we really need to dig deep and look for ownership of the website. Great to compare. I think that this company likely is very familiar with kind of industry rates, and I know that they went above and beyond to try to earn the village's business being local. So I hope everybody reaches out to them if they have any questions about it. I can share, in fact, I think I did share their contact information in one of the emails. But they're also, I think both companies are happy to come in and present. So,
Right. Okay, anything else, Kim?
Just one more thing. A reminder, filling the historian role a little bit, that we did have Civic Plus back before we went to Nicole. If anybody remembers, that was really hard to use by everybody. And there was some question to whether or not there was being charges for things that we'd ask for simple things, and they were just nickel and dime in the village, so.
And you're talking about Civic Plus?
Civic Plus.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely talking, I will talk with Rival Mine,
Good.
obviously.
Please do. Okay. All right, we're going to move on. Additional items from president, trustees, attorney, anything?
Just the acceptance of the recommendation to cancel 5-5 and do a special for 5-12. And then that would kind of push our next meeting from 5/19 to 5/26. The downside of that is it's the day after the Memorial Long Weekend, if that doesn't conflict with people traveling. If you'd check that before we would do that. But that could then set you up for the one meeting a month for June, July, and August to be 6/16 is your one meeting in June. And that way, if you do it at 5/26, you're not as, long break.
So
But
you're
then-
saying adding a third one in May?
Well, no,
Or-
you'd cancel both the 5-5 and the 5/19 and then do
May
5/12 and 5/26.
Oh, so just moving them out.
Move them each a week. And then that 26 date, you're not as far away at 19 as a full month away from the next meeting.
Why
I'm
why
good
are
with
we, why are we pushing them back?
What did she say?
Yeah, why are we
Because,
pushing the dates back?
because next week, 5/5, we'd have to have an agenda out like tomorrow morning.
Right.
And Tracy and I've got to kind of gather up the batting order for what needs to happen and talk to Russ. And just, I think 5 is going to just be such a quick turnaround from tonight, that if we could do 5/12, then we get to 5/26, and it does lines up and sets you up for the one meeting a month in June and July.
I'm good with that.
Good. How about you, Nick?
I think, I might not be available on the 26th. I don't think I'll be around on the 26th, but that's fine.
So we're good with the 12th, May 12th at least?
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the 12th. I'm not, the 26th I will not be around.
Well, we can just cancel the 5/5 and schedule the special 5/12, and then we can discuss at the 5/12 if we're going to make an adjustment to the 5/19 to the 5/26.
Yeah, there you go.
That works for me.
What's that?
Or Tracy's recommending you start your summer schedule in May and just have the one meeting on
5/19.
5/12, and
That
then
might
go
be
back
okay.
to
That
6/16.
works too.
But you can discuss that at 5/12.
That works for me, the 5/12, and then if we could just talk, I haven't made my firm plans up yet for the 26th, but that is a week that I was not gonna be here,
Okay.
potentially.
All right, so we'll just do the first 5/5 canceled and special 5/12, Tracy.
Yeah, May 12th. Okay. And we do need a closed session for appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees or contractors. There'll be no action afterwards. So thank you for coming.
We gotta do a motion.
Yep, I'll have a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Stop, we gotta state why.
Which is-
Whoever's making